We're live, Andrea. You don't listen.
No. I didn't transmit that information. You didn't transmit
All
it.
right, how you guys doing? This is Become Better with your brother, Coach Garthian, and
Sister Andrea.
I like Coach better.
Coach Andrea.
How you guys
Coach
doing?
Andrea.
Yeah.
Give me 5.
Yeah. So how is everybody doing today? Again, Coach Andrea, Coach Garthian, and this is our Real Relationship series, and we're going to talk about what most people don't do: listening, communicating. You know, I don't know how many of you all have ever been in a ton of relationships, or even one relationships.
A ton.
Some people have been in a ton of relationships, sweetheart. A ton of
I'm
relationships,
sorry.
or just
there
we go. And so, a lot of people, when you get into arguments, you always hear the language, "You don't listen." I cannot think of how many times we've been in arguments. Let me get this out the way. There's never an opportunity, regardless of where you are, to become better. Number one. Number two, we're not there yet. We got into an argument today.
Did we get into an
No, it was a disagreement.
Disagreements. Let me say this though. Disagreements are they're different than arguments.
Right.
You can disagree in a good manner.
Right.
But we all know what arguments are.
Right.
Don't act like y'all don't know, because I know someone out here is like, oh no, I never argue. And you might not, but that doesn't mean you don't know what an argument is.
Right. And so, what typically happens, it starts out small, like most things, right? And it turns into something much bigger. And so we kind of want to go over, first of all, let me say this. You are definitely going to disagree. Some of those disagreements are going to turn into arguments. So what we're not going to do is pretend and act like disagreements and arguments in relationships are not going to happen. They're going to happen because you're in the midst of relating, especially when you're getting to know one another. It's a new relationship. What we're not going to do is pretend like it's just so hunky-dory that, hey, we're the Cleavers and we never argue. No. You're gonna have some disagreements, and some of those disagreements are gonna blow up into arguments. What we're saying is, how do you manage the conflict?
Or how do you minimize that disagreement? How do you minimize the risk of that becoming an argument?
Right.
And we're learning, like he said, we are not there yet, but we are learning that every time we disagree, it doesn't have to turn into an argument. And in fact, that relieves a lot of tension and stress on the relationship. By the way, these little tips, these little suggestions, they're not just for your relationship with your significant other.
Right.
You know, we're relating with people on a daily basis, different people, our children, our colleagues at work, our colleagues and brothers and sisters in our religious denominations and affiliations, people we come into contact with on the street. Shoot, even driving. I mean, how many conflicts while you're driving turn into a major disagreement?
Right.
And end in something very tragic. So all of these tips can be employed in those different opportunities that you're going to be presented with to relate to somebody better than you've been relating in the past.
Right. So the first thing we want to do, we're going to deal with this in parts and pieces. And if you have questions out there, we definitely want you to ask questions.
Please.
Because 21 years of marriage. Let me say this. I'm gonna correct that. 21 years of
in the process of becoming
being
married. I mean,
and there's a difference.
We got the paper, we got the rings.
Right, and there's a difference. Let me explain. So when you stand up in front of a preacher or a minister and you have witnesses, those witnesses, they're witnessing you say you're going to be married.
Right. They're witnessing your intention being made
Right.
public and your vows being made that you're going to do everything possible to solidify this marriage and solidify this relationship with this person for the rest of your life.
Right. And so when you do that, it's a process to become marriage, things that are married, things that come together. It doesn't happen that quick. It's a process. So that was a little bit of a side note so you kind of understand that we're still in the process even after 21 long, exhausting, 21 beautiful years. All right, now, so first thing we want to do, I roll through that. First thing we want to do
Really good.
is define listening. Okay? All right, I'll let you define that. All right.
So, listening is the ability to accurately receive and interpret messages in the communication process. We're going to be dealing with a lot of processes.
Okay. So there are 5 components of communication. We're going to go through those 5, and then we're going to come back and kind of break down what the reality is in dealing with the 5.
And we're going to break down how important listening is in that whole process. I mean, is it just the icing on the cake, or is it maybe really the cake?
Okay. So
You like
so
that,
5
didn't
things. I did 5 things. So there's the senders encodes the information. So you got the sender who encodes. You got the sender selects a channel of communication by which to send the message. Yes, I'm reading this. Okay. The receiver receives the message. The receiver decodes the message. The receiver may provide feedback to the sender. All right. So let's go back to the first one. What does that mean when you say the sender encodes? In other words, the sender has to develop a message to give to the receiver.
Now, in the process of communication, these roles are interchangeable. So you may start off as the sender, but then you may be the receiver at another point.
Exactly. Okay. And if I want to stop and say hello to James and Jessica and my man Mike Edwards Jr., Stephen Muhammad, Sharice Muhammad, stay on, keep watching, we appreciate it, and share. And again, throw in some questions as we go. All right. So first you got the sender's information. So I'm gonna go. This is gonna be some real life stuff, right? So have you ever said to yourself, okay, I want to say something to my spouse or my significant other, and I want to try to say it in the best way possible so that they receive the information with the intent that I'm giving it. But emotion actually gets involved because you got the right way and the wrong way, and I'm going to start off with the incorrect or the wrong way. So emotion actually gets involved with what you're trying to get them to receive. Yeah. Example. Man, I would like for her to be able to hear what I'm saying because she doesn't listen, and so I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna say it like this. Listen, I'm trying to get you to understand that I need you to help me get this report together. You're not doing it. So please help me. Now, I need you to think about what I just said, right? I'm being emotional, and I know I'm dealing with something basic. I'm being emotional, and I'm trying to get her to receive my message. So in this particular case, I'm the messenger. How could I have done that better?
Okay, so the sender sent me a message. Now, if I'm
encoded the message.
Well, you encoded the message.
Right.
So you encoded this information to me. And as the receiver, what I'm receiving, if I'm going to be real, and let's be real.
Please.
If I'm going to be real, I just received frustration. I didn't receive your desire to have me help. I didn't receive.
So you received my emotion.
I value your contribution.
But damn it, I need it done.
Well, damn it, I'm not gonna do it because I don't know who you talking to. I mean, isn't that the response?
So how could I have first dealt with that? And I want to deal with something too when it comes to communication. And ladies, walk with me down this path. First met my wife 21 years ago. So language is
22 years.
22 years ago. I'm sorry.
I didn't marry you when I
No,
met
you didn't. That's true. It was actually 24 years ago, really being technical.
you.
When you meet a man and or a woman for the first time and you're trying to get a phone number, get to know them. Somehow or another, we understand in the beginning, when you're communicating with somebody, it's broken up into 3 percentages. Words. In other words, the words that you use are only worth 7%. These are the literal words that you use. They're only worth 7%, right? The tone. Tone, what does that mean? Tone. Tone is how you say what you say, okay? It's like I just said, damn it, loud, soft, quiet. It's the tone in which you say it. It's how you say it. And then there's the body language, right? The body language is 55%. 55% of what you say, guys, is going to be the body language. Have you ever been talking to somebody and what you get is, or that's not the language that you want. So, or that's not the response that you want. So if 70% of it are words, so let's stop right there. 70% of it, while it's just 7%, it's still 7%. So in other words, don't we want to try, hey, Monica, don't we want to try to choose our words correctly, right? Now, again, let me say that this is going to be ongoing, and it's going to be ongoing all the time. It's not just something that you just automatically do. Tomorrow you wake up. This stuff takes an incredible amount of practice and perfect practice, right? Somebody once said it's not practice that makes perfect, it's perfect practice that makes perfect. So we want to begin to choose our words correctly. And then tone. I want to match tone. I don't want my tone to be so over the top that even though you're using the right words, the person cannot ever hear you because of the tone that you're using. So you can say the right words, but the tone that you're using is completely off. So if I say to somebody, I love you, but I say, I love you, yeah, that tone doesn't necessarily speak to the love that you may have. And then, of course, the body language and communication is the biggest thing. So you can actually say it using the right words. You can have the right tone, but if the receiver or the sender is not, the body language is there, it's going to be all messed up. So you have to have a great combination of all 3. So I want to go back to the sender, that person that actually sends the message out, that person that wants the help. How do you send it? What's the best way for me, first of all, to communicate with you? Because remember, we're dealing with individuals. So I think sometimes we think that we can deal with everybody in the same manner, same tone, same words, but everybody's an individual. So sometimes you have to stop and ask the question from the other person, how would you like for me best to communicate with you? And I've asked her, my wife, because we're dealing with relationships, right? How should I best deal with you? So when you're dealing with communication, I think one of the first processes is to ask the question, how would you like for me to communicate with you? What in our relationship, and be real now, and it's okay because we're like a glass house here. What mistakes did I make in the beginning? What improvements did I make, and how were you able to receive that? Since we're dealing with just the senders, just how I sent a particular message.
Okay, so some of us are more passionate communicators than others. And Garthian happens to be one of those people. He's a way more passionate communicator than I am in most things. Now, I'm passionate about some things, but he's like passionate about everything. So when he's frustrated, honey, when you're frustrated,
yes,
I'm going to need you to take 5 before you come to me. And don't communicate so much your frustration as much as you're communicating what it is that you need from me.
All right, let's stop right there. So you've asked her, she's told me exactly what she and how she wants me to communicate. What is the mistake, people, that you're going to make, or that you can make after she or he, because I'm going to be real, brothers, a lot of times, we're the recipients of the you don't listen. Typically, it is true. Men, and I'm a man's man too. We typically don't listen we hear. And let me explain. There is a difference between hearing and listening. You heard that. I know you heard it because sound travels from one point to the next. So you heard me. So a lot of times in communication, we like to use the language, I hear you. Well, I know you heard me because hearing is a natural function of the body if you have the physical ability to.
Can you do that again?
Of this?
Okay, so who understood that? I mean, was it just clapping, or did you receive an encoded bit of information from that? See, if you didn't receive the encoded bit of information, if you didn't receive that information, if you didn't understand it, then there was something not right with either the communication process or the listening.
Right. And so just because you heard it doesn't mean it actually got the message that you intended got sent. So let's talk about the emotional part of it, because we once did a video called Pissed Off Communication. How many of you all have ever been pissed off in communication, angry, emotional, you know, and you're sitting up there and you're saying it, and really what you want to do is hurt the person. And because hurt people.
Or
and
what you think you want to do is hurt the person.
Right. Because you really don't want to, but you're so wrapped up in being pissed off, and that person is pissed off. So you got these two negative energies trying to create something positive. And in communication, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? I'm going to tell you from my own personal angry problems, it does not freaking work. And then once you calm down, there's one thing about the Incredible Hulk. When he's really angry, smash, Hulk smash, Hulk hurt, right? It is not until he comes all the way down, then he's asking the questions, man, what did I do? Who did I hurt? How many people did I destroy? How many people around me was received the aftermath
of my actions.
Of my actions. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. See? All right. So the sender, you got to remove the emotion out of it. How do you remove the emotion out of it? You got to be able to think beyond your emotion rationally. Again, these things take an incredible amount of time, right?
Notice how important it is to send the information the way that you're intending. You're thinking about what it is that you want to communicate. So this process, this is all wrapped up in listening, even though we're dealing with the sender of the information right now. As the sender, you have to make sure that what you're doing in your process of communicating, what you're doing in sending that message and encoding that message is as clear and succinct as possible, because you've got the receiver on the other end. Now, what are they receiving? Are they receiving frustration? Are they receiving something else? Are they receiving the message that you've encoded?
You also want to think about your result. You want a result. You want to be able to get whatever it is you're trying to get. Your entire message was to get a result, but you can't get the result in a emotional manner, because then it gets what we call lost in translation, because too much of the freaking emotion is wrapped up inside of it, right? All right, so now you got the sender. He has information he wants to get across.
He's encoded it.
Now that could be via text, by the way. This could be phone call. It could be cell phone. It could be belly button to belly button. It could be through a conversation. It's however the person decides to send the message. And everybody knows these things, while they're great, guess what? When it comes to really important information, if you're emotional, text messages can be read real crazy. So I'm just going to side note, be careful how you send it, right? Now, so the sender selects a channel of communication by which to send the message. I want to send that message basically by having a conversation with my wife, with my spouse, right? You know, you ever heard of a buffer? You can buffer, and we've done this.
Mm-hmm.
You can buffer it by saying, listen, I'm getting ready to say something, right? And I don't want it to come out wrong. So I'm going to say it. I'm going to try to choose the best way to say it. See, I just buffered her. I just got her ready for what I want her to receive. Because in these 21 years of marriage, we've had to break down each other and say, listen, what is the best way? All right, well, why don't you tell me what you're going to tell me, but tell me in a manner that protects me from any damage. Listen, I don't want this to hurt, so let me say it to you like this. The way that you have been communicating with me
hasn't worked.
It's not working. What do you mean it's not working? It's not working because when you communicate, this is the result that we're getting. Okay? So I want to go to the second part. The sender selects the channel. So I've selected the channel. The channel we've already realized is going to be through me having a direct conversation.
Right. We're going to have a direct conversation. We're going to discuss something.
Right. We need to, you can even start it off by saying this one. We need to
have
talk,
a discussion.
or we need to have a conversation.
Right.
Okay? Not the best thing to have a conversation in the midst of being pissed off or being angry or even sometimes being sad or even being stressed. It's best to sometimes walk away, get a breather, and you have to let that person walk away. I'm gonna give you a real life example. We got into it.
This is recently. Didn't I try to walk away?
We got into it. I can't even remember 100%. Maybe you can.
I don't remember either, but I know that I got pissed off and I just needed to calm down. And I was like, look, right now is not the good time.
So I kept calling. I must have called.
And I kept, no.
I must have called 10 or 12 times, and she ignored the call.
Oh, yes.
10 or 12 times.
Oh, yes.
So in her ignoring the call, it just got me super pissed. Now I got a cape on. I got a cape on now because I'm super pissed.
Wait. And hey, Andy. So I was getting ready to be with my dad. He's like, I'm going to call your dad and ask him to talk to you. Okay, fine. I'm still not talking to you right now.
Okay. So we have, so how do we resolve that, by the way? I calmed down. She calmed down. We did not talk about it immediately when she walked in the house. We absolutely decided, right, to wait until our emotions were completely out of it. We came back to it, discussed it. That's why right now I can't even really pinpoint what it was about because it was kind of small.
And if I can,
please.
When we came back to it, the emotional charge had been removed.
Say that again.
The emotional charge had been removed. Anybody know what an emotional charge is? If you don't, send me a heart or something. That emotional charge, I mean, just like with anything, with electricity, with battery, energy has a charge. Now, if your emotional charge is a negative emotional charge, then that's going to yield those results that we don't want. But when you remove all of the charge, we didn't have negative, we didn't have positive, it just had pretty much died down. Now, was it something we still felt the need to discuss? Yeah, but even in that, it wasn't a belabored conversation. It wasn't long and drawn out. It was just like, hey, I really didn't appreciate that. Well, let's do this the next time.
Hey, Elijah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So once you remove that charge, and sometimes, you might have to be the bad guy. I was the bad guy that day that was like, I'm not talking to you about this. Sometimes it's difficult, particularly as women. Men do it a little easier. They'll walk away from it. And you know how we internalize our feelings, ladies. And I know I'm telling the truth. We won't say anything about it. We'll hold it in. And then we're sitting and we're like, well, he always gets to walk away when he don't want to talk about it. And if I try to do the same thing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. If you do the same thing, he might be upset. But guess what? He's already upset. Don't worry about it.
Right. Now, sometimes we don't agree with like that piece she just said, which is true. It's 100% true. I'm going to add to this without giving it a but.
In addition,
try not to compare yourself using double standards. This is a difficult one. And this is normally how it goes. Had I said the same thing to you, this is what you would have done. This is how you would have responded. So you mean to tell me you can say it to me and I don't get to respond in the same way? We're two different individuals. We're not going to respond in the same way. Now, do I need to correct that? Do I need to correct that? But if I'm wrong in my response to a thing, double standards say you get to be wrong in the response too. And who wants to do that? Where's the actual growth in that? Okay. Elijah's on the phone with her mom. She's listening. That's my baby cousin. Monica said, thank you guys. I really need this message. I work with people in their way of communicating and receiving. She said it's also helpful for my own communication and receiving. Hey, we appreciate it. Please listen.
That's what we're here for. I mean,
this is a process. I'm
right.
sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, we're on a long journey to become better, and we're wanting to share our journey with you, and we're inviting everyone to join that, because ultimately our goal is to improve our communities, is to improve our society. And right now we have some issues. Communication is one of the worst things that we mess up on a day-to-day basis. It's one of the things that impacts how we handle folks at work, how we handle each other in our personal relationships, how we deal with our parents, how we deal with our children. So this is what we're trying to work on. This is what we're doing, not trying.
Right.
There is no try.
There is no try. Just do.
Do or do not.
There is no try.
There is no try.
Now, there's another conversation that's being had too, and I hate to go backwards. I should have dealt with this first, and that's the conversation that you first had with yourself.
Do we always have that conversation
Always.
with us? I don't think so.
No, I mean,
I think sometimes we just open our mouths
and that's it. But you should
have that
a conversation by yourself by playing chess in your brain. What do you mean, Garthian, by playing chess? Let me explain what I mean. Conversations are a tragic and or beautiful chess game. What do I mean? That means in chess, you're not necessarily playing the board more than you are the person and what they might do. If you want to force them to do something, it kind of goes like, well, if I do this, it's going to force them to do that, which will force them to do this, which will make them to do this. And you play the whole thing out in your head, and bang, I got you in 3 moves. Well, conversations kind of run the same way. You can run the conversation so you know damn well if you tell that girl or tell that woman or tell your wife or significant other or your coworker, excuse me, you better put that up. You could have done it a little bit better than that. Did you run that conversation through your head before you actually let it come out of your mouth? Because remember, you wanted a result. You wanted to get a message across. You could have gotten the same result by just simply saying, hey, by the way, you left that
you left the mop over there on the floor. Someone can trip over that.
Right. Could you do me a favor and pick that up? Right? You get the same stuff. But remember, conversations that end up this big, it always starts off really, really, really small, because we didn't have that conversation with ourselves about, man, if I say this like this, I know what kind of response I'm going to get.
Right.
How about I try saying it differently, using different words, different tones, a different kind of inviting body language, and then that way I'm going to get the response that I'm looking to get. You can play it out in your head and get the response that you want. Okay?
So what about this sender?
Okay.
Selecting the channel of communication. We've done that.
We've done that.
We've decided we're having a conversation.
Right. So now you have now you have the receiver receives the message. The receiver receives the message.
Now remember, there was a lot of pressure on, and not really a lot, but there was some pressure on how the sender encoded the information, right? So now, as the receiver, how did I receive it? What was I doing? Was I sitting there and kind of off in la la land? If it's that uncomfortable conversation that we've said, hey, you've come to me, you've said, hey, honey, I think we need to have a talk. I think we need to have a discussion about what's one? When you're out, and you're not going to be home by a certain time.
Call me and let me know the food a little bit.
And
that's a real one.
And
so
yeah,
this
is real. This is real.
It's real.
So you're out, and I know you got stuff. I know you're running back and forth. If you're not going to be able to have, dinner prepared or have something.
That's me saying that.
That's him saying that. Then can you just let me know, and I can stop and get something. I can even bring something home for everybody. So this is a conversation we've had, and not so successful all the time on my part, because sometimes I get busy and I forget to call or something, and then he comes home and he's like, me hungry, man.
Yeah, that's
okay.
True.
So but when we sit down to have this conversation, I need to talk to you about something. How am I receiving that? How am I receiving his initial communication? Now, the responsible and mature thing to do is to free your mind, to not be sitting there thinking, oh my God, what is he going to say now? every time we have one of these conversations, blah, 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 and then building a defense and you don't even know what's coming. How many of us do that? Right. I mean, I can't, sometimes I get confused as which hand. Right. That's where the maturity on the receiver is called into play. You've got to be able to say, okay, let's sit down. This is a good time. Free your mind and really be able to receive the messages being sent.
Do not assume, you know what assume means, but do not assume that the person is going to respond a certain way.
Right.
And that's on both parts. That's as a sender and a receiver. Don't assume that they're going to respond. You have to go in there knowing or believing, trusting that if you deliver the message right, they're going to receive the message right.
And you also have to be careful on assuming that it's negative. See, him coming to me and saying, honey, I really would appreciate it if you would call me and let me know if we need something for lunch, or if you need something to prepare for dinner, or if you're not going to have dinner made. That's not necessarily negative. Sometimes we get caught up in our emotions about a thing. Don't assume it's going to be negative. A correction is not negative. I don't know if you all heard me, and this is ladies. Sometimes there's a thing, well, he's trying to tell me what to do. Men, right. I'm a man. No. What is it? A wise man loveth correction, and a
foolish man despises reproof.
That's right.
That's one of my favorites.
He despises what is reproof. It's correction. So if you're not able to understand that this is coming from a place, whether it's your husband or your wife, whether it's your children. How many of us have been corrected by our children, and that little ego, that little thing rises up so quick? Boy, I'm your mama. You can't tell me, blah, blah, blah. I'm your daddy. You want to go chest to chest? No. Because
been there, done that. That right, is not the way to do
right
that.
Doesn't have an age. It doesn't have a sex. It doesn't have a picture or a figure of authority attached to it. Whatever is right and correct, or whatever is of concern and expressed, it's there for your growth.
Now remember the words again. The receiver receives the message. Now, to receive a thing means you got it. That means you got the message and the message's intent from the messenger.
So what'd you get from this?
Right.
That's nothing.
I got nothing from that. But if I receive the message, that means I heard you. In order to receive it, I can't be in respond mode. I'm going to say that again. In order to receive it, I cannot be in respond mode. Most people are always in respond mode. Most people, not all, we're working on it, but most people, the conversation goes like this. The sender tells you something. For the receiver, the sender tells you something. For the receiver to receive it, that means you have to take it in. That means you got to be like sitting really,
So you're not thinking? Or are you?
Right. See, I'm receiving. I'm thinking about what's being said. It is no wonder with God, you learn to hear long.
How many of these do we have?
You have 2 of these and 1 of these. But you learn to hear, or you hear long before you learn to speak. Most children start speaking, formulating words, but they've been hearing a lot longer. I wonder why that is. So that means I have to receive it. I have to listen to what the person is saying and quiet my mind and not be so quick to respond. So most conversations go kind of like this. So what I'm telling you is, I really am what I'm trying to get you to understand is that, and then a person starts to interrupt you every time you get a word.
What do you mean understand? How do you know I don't understand? You didn't even ask me if I understand.
But I'm trying to get out what I'm trying to. So it turns into one of those conversations where it's, and you can see the person as you're talking, they're literally trying to talk while you're talking. You never actually get the full message out. So that's the receiver now. The receiver has to be able to sit, listen, and absorb. You got to be a sponge for a minute. Even if it hurts, don't try to respond emotionally. Try to think about where that person is coming from.
Absolutely.
Okay? See?
I have nothing to say.
So the receiver receives the message. He gets it. Then the receiver decodes the message. That means the receiver gets the opportunity to actually think about and break down what the person is actually trying to convey.
So in receiving the message, that's where we're using our auditory receptors. We're hearing it, okay? That's step one of listening. You're actually hearing the information. And then it goes from hearing to the decoding portion. That's where you get to start thinking.
And listening.
And not necessarily thinking about what your response is.
Okay.
You're thinking about what the message was. You're decoding, you're breaking it down so that you have a proper understanding. Now, in wisdom, if you don't have a proper understanding, this is where you don't assume again, because a lot of us will do this. Instead of asking questions for clarification, we assume, oh, so you're trying to say that I'm not cooking for you and blah, blah, blah,
So
blah, blah.
So what you're telling me is...
But wait a minute, I cook for you I don't know how many times, and just because I don't get home one time, that's all wrong. Because that's not what he said. What he said was, honey, I know you get busy. If you find you're going to get busy, call me. Or you find that you have gotten busy, call me. So if I'm not emotional, take that charge off and I start breaking that down, I'm able to hear, I'm able to hear it first, use my mind to decode it and think, okay, all right, so you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I don't understand, so are you saying that if I get busy, I just need to call you and then maybe you can make some other arrangements?
Absolutely. That's the repeat method. That lets the sender know that you understand.
Right.
Let me use that word again. Understand.
Or you don't understand.
Right. By saying, so what you're saying is, I should have food ready or huh? See that somewhere a question crawled up. Now I'm glad you did that, because no, that's not. Now I get to clarify.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you can just do me a favor, if it looks like it's gonna get late, give me a call. Let me know. That way I'm better prepared, or I know that I'm gonna get home and it might not be ready for an hour. Now we're talking about food, but we've also, this is real. I've actually been like fish grease hot because of this, and I know it may seem small to you.
But he's also come home and my hand been out
sitting
the
up
door
there with the
a
food
plate
and the plate is ready. Okay, so yeah. Now, so you got the receiver that codes the message, and the receiver may provide feedback. The receiver really should provide feedback
if necessary. Sometimes it's not necessary. Sometimes I got you is all that's necessary. I think as we get more mature, some of us find ourselves in this role of not wanting to waste a lot of words.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make it concise. I got you. Thanks. You know what? Thanks for that. I'll call you next time. And then do it.
Right.
Because that shows further that you do understand what the message was.
And ultimately, in a relationship, regardless of the relationship, your ultimate goal should be to help the person.
And to grow yourself.
And to grow yourself. And the other person's ultimate goal should be to also grow themselves and help you. So it has to be a symbiotic, has to be reciprocal, right? In giving the relationship. So if I'm telling you, now we're going to get to the meat of it right now. If I'm telling you right now that the way that you're communicating with me, I don't like it, and you continue to communicate with me the exact same way, what that is telling me that you don't respect me as a person enough to listen to me.
And so when you say all of that, how should my body language be?
Not like that.
Not like this. Not like this. I'm closed.
Right.
I'm not receiving. That's
right.
important. Your body language is important too. And we've had this conversation. We have a son who's kind of aloof. And And sometimes he feels like his body language really is not important in the conversation. But we're explaining to him that perception is very important in communication as well. And so if I'm receiving your information, or if you're sending information to me and I'm standing there, see, there's communication that's taking place even though you may not be speaking. I might be doing the speaking, but if you cross your arms and
Right.
your face is all contorted, or you're looking up and you're rolling your eyes, you're sending a message. There's a perception that I'm going to have based on how you have communicated.
Exactly. And I'm going to say this too. By the way, please, if you got any questions,
Please
ask, because I'll give you the truth. And in communication, you have to admit when you are incorrect. Somebody once taught me that we use the word wrong incorrectly, that wrong points to a moral issue, right? So I may be incorrect in what I'm doing. The other thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to hold things. I think this is where the emotion in conversation actually comes in, right? So I've had people that were upset with me. Now, I want you to listen to what I'm telling you now. They were upset with me and they held it based on, not talking about her, based on something that I did or didn't do. I don't know. But when you hold a thing like that and you're angry at the person doesn't have a clue, that is not on that person. That is on you. Because you didn't give them the opportunity to make amends or to make it right. They didn't get an opportunity to atone with you because you didn't give them a chance to. Now you go with them and you all ticked off and pissed off about something, and you go to them emotionally. You go to them angry, and they're looking at you like, Chief, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, it was 8 years ago. Oh, wow.
did you come to me or not you, but in this instance, go to the person, give them the opportunity to listen, because they can't read your mind. That's why communication is so important. That's why listening is so important. That's why sending the messages are so important. It's because it is the venue by which we can either grow the relationships or we can abort the growth of the relationships.
That's ooh, she just dropped something. That was a nugget. Communication can either help or hinder. So the question you have to ask, and we have to ask ourselves, do we want our relationships to become better, or do we want the relationship to actually become worse? Because I'm gonna actually tell you, I was a fool in the beginning of our relationship. I did not know how to communicate. I was an emotional basket case. And while I seemed cool, calm, and collective on the outside, I might even look that way. On the inside, I was having some issues communicating with my young wife on damn near everything. So there was arguing, there was fussing, there was cursing, there was no fist fight, there was none of these, no fisticuffs. But it was kind of raggedy. You know what I mean? And I think the best thing that I did is I started reading about development of self. And then I started learning how to communicate, so much so. Now, here's the other part of communication. You have to allow the person that's trying to grow the ability to grow and to grow. Okay, I know that was really redundant.
And you have to support that. You have to support the growth, because all that's going to do is that's going to help you to grow as well. It's going to help you all to grow individually and collectively.
Go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say, because if you don't allow it, or you're stuck on how they used to respond to you. This is how the person used to treat you. So you're responding, and I get it, because every action gets an equal and opposite reaction. So when I'm saying this to you, brothers, men, a lot of times we mold and women, don't take what I'm getting ready to say the wrong way. I want to make sure I choose the right language. But we mold our significant others in a manner by which they're going to respond to you, because that's how you have taught them to respond to you, by the way that you treat and or communicate with them. So
that's true.
Produced in them a certain kind of reaction based on the way that you always act. When you decide to change, they're not going to necessarily be able to flip a switch to change. They're still going to respond how they've always responded. So if they're going to give you an opportunity to grow past the damn fool you were, I suggest that you give them the opportunity to make that necessary adjustment to the person that you're becoming, vice versa. Because your mouth and our mouths have caused thousands and hundreds of thousands, I'm going to say millions of deaths, words, communication. It's relationships from individual to from self, from individual to individual, groups to groups, right? Organizations to organizations, nations to nations have been mutilated, have been decimated
based on
communication or the lack thereof.
That's right.
So it is incumbent. It is like it's a must. Why do most relationships fail? Communication. Why do 50% of not some marriages but all marriages? I don't care who you, Muslim, Nation of Islam, good Christian, been in the church all your life, you've been Jewish, it don't matter. 50% of all marriages end in divorce, and the number one reason is communication, then it's finance, but it's always communication first. Irreconcilable differences.
That's just the inability to communicate properly and effectively.
Right. And
that's all it is.
And the inability to want to learn how. I'm going to get myself in hot water probably with her later on this evening. But the difference is, how do I recover? Right? How do I shut your face? How do I recover? Because men, we gonna have some conversations where it's just gonna be us. Because here's the reality. You know damn well in your head you should have apologized for that crap that you did. You know you should have. You even said to yourself, "Damn, I should say I'm sorry about that crap that I pulled." But then the ego in you won't allow you to. There's another layer of stupidity on top of stupidity. So you continue down that road, and I hear women say, "I can't talk to him." Every time I tried, I told him he didn't listen. You don't listen. Number one, when you hear that in arguments, that means probably we're not listening one to the other.
That's right.
Anything you want to add? Any questions? Let me see. Monica Orlando says,
tongue has no bone, but breaks
bone.
Ooh,
nice. Nice.
And that's true. That's true. Ladies, on our side, there's a plant down here. I actually had one when we were back in St. Louis, but this grows naturally here in Florida. You can find it all over the place. It's called mother-in-law's tongue. Anybody out there have one of those or have it growing in your backyard, then you know that it is a very tall and very beautiful plant. It's like a palm leaf. It just grows straight up and it comes to a point. And it's called mother-in-law's tongue because of how it's shaped. And it's shaped kind of like a sword. Now, why is it called mother-in-law's tongue? Well, there's kind of this wives' tale that, or this saying that mother-in-laws have sharp tongues, that they don't hold their tongues. They say what they're going to say. Well, ladies, I'm going to say that that's not just mother-in-laws. That's us too. That's wives. That's spouses. That's friends. That's colleagues. That's workers. It's everywhere. In fact, so much so, I'm going to give you all an example. So many of you all know that we used to say, sell high priced blenders. We used to sell Vitamix machines. Mm-hmm. And when I would get a little tired, and those of you all who know me personally, you know that I have a sharp tongue. But it's quick, it's swift. It's like a Ginsu knife. Like you really don't know you've been cut because I'm doing it with a smile. And I'm like, oh, ha, ha, ha. And then you walk away from me and you're bleeding and you don't know why. Well, we have to be careful. And I did it a lot when I was at work. I was cutting people left and right. When they'd say something really stupid, I just had to cut them. I mean, because I just, better cut them than him. But but I'm saying that to say that I did it at work, but I had already done it at home for years. Don't do it as much anymore. I really, really try not to do that. But it is true. It's indicative of a woman's tongue and how we can do damage in talking. And sometimes it is that syndrome of feeling like we've been pushed in a corner, and you know how cats come out just fighting. Sometimes we do that. Sometimes we feel like we're fighting, and when you're in that period of watching your friend or your loved one or someone else grow, even if it's your work colleague, give them that opportunity to grow. Don't be so quick to come out fighting, because you're not always in a fight. And that's why it's so important to listen. Even sometimes if the person is sending the information wrong and you're receiving the information, maybe it's got a lot of negative charge on it. It's not always going to be just the responsibility of the sender to send it properly. But if you're on the receiving end, sometimes you have to challenge yourself to remove the negative charge from it. Okay, remove the negative charge. In our work experiences, sometimes you have a superior, maybe it's the figure of authority, it's your boss, it's somebody else. Maybe you have your own business and you have clients who want things done a specific way, and they're communicating to you in a very nasty manner. And maybe you have to be the one who can remove that charge and be able to communicate back to them in a more positive, fashion.
So just like, that's a great point, because you don't have to respond in like.
I say that all the time. Don't give like for like.
Right. You really don't. So somebody says something to you, I don't know what the background of the day is for them. Some people cannot separate the personal stuff from business, vice versa, or they can't separate what happened to them emotionally from communicating with somebody. It might not be you. So before you respond in like, you may say, and then you may say, you know what, I don't know if this has anything to do with me. Or you might even reverse it and say, listen, this is not normally you. Always remember are you okay? Always to remember the source. Like if she responds to me a certain kind of way or gives me information a certain kind of way, I have to ask myself a question. This is not who she is. So something must be out of sorts.
That's right.
And then I'm gonna give it a minute and say, hey, what's going on? Are you all right?
It goes back to having that conversation with yourself. You know, it's whether you're not interpreting the information, you're not decoding the information properly. But before you even get to that, let me check myself. Okay, I might need to ask them before they continue to communicate with me this way. Is everything okay with you? You having a rough day?
It's been rough.
Oh, okay. And so now light bulbs go off. So now you know they got a little negative charge on them right now. Maybe I need to sit back and not necessarily really focus on how they're delivering it, but really try to hear through to the message. Or maybe I'm having a bad day too. You know what? Can we talk about this later?
Right.
You look a little stressed. I know I'm stressed.
Right.
Let's come back to this.
It's hot. It's the summertime.
It's hot. We in Florida outside. It's hot. It's not that hot now.
So we're gonna sum it up.
Listening.
You don't
listen.
I need you to understand that in this series that we're going to be dealing with, because this is real relationships that we're going to be dealing with here, real relationship stuff. You got to be able to first admit as an individual where the miscommunication lies with and in you in order to get beyond where you are. And then you have to check yourself while it's happening. Sometimes you got to be able to do it even before it happens. You got to say, okay, wait a minute, I'm tripping. Or before that even happens, ask yourself the question, what is the result that I'm trying to get? And you know damn well you can't get a good result with bad language. You can't get a good result if what you gave out. If you put out bad, you're going to get 9 times out of 9, unless that person is a really mature person, you're going to get back that response. Think about body language just for a second. When we were coming up, when we were in high school, how many fights got started with no words? Somebody would walk up to you and just give you that one of these.
Or how many phone numbers got handed out with no words?
I look at but I give you that up and down. Then you get, well, what's good? Who you look, body language have started fights. Who you looking at?
Gazi says, listen with more than your ear.
Right. That means you got to listen with your entire being.
That's right. That's right.
And that takes focus.
Remember, only thing we're doing with our ears really and truly is hearing. We're just
letting it absorb.
Right.
That's it.
That's that initial reception.
That's it. That's all. That's it. Because deaf people listen,
but they can't hear. How is that possible?
but they're still communicating.
Or what about people who can't speak?
But they're still
communicating.
So there's a method, there's a science, there's a wisdom to proper communication. Look at the one you call Muhammad or that you call Jesus. How did they communicate? How did they get their message across that the masses, or not the masses, that they actually heard, listened, and changed their entire way of life through communication?
We actually had the pleasure of hearing Brother Student Minister Ishmael Muhammad speak on this a little bit today, and it struck me because we knew we were going to be talking about listening today, but he said listening is an art. And not only is an art, one of our children, well, three of our children are in camp, and they're studying art, and they're studying it because it's an art, but it's also a skill. They're honing their skill to be able to be better artists. And so listening is an art, but as craftsmen of the art of listening, we have to hone it as a skill. And it's crucial that we do it, Wait a minute.
Did you all hear? I don't think they caught that joint. Say it again. We have to
hone our skill.
Stop
we
right
have
there.
to be about
Stop
that
right
skill.
there. Honing. That means you have to bring
you have to cultivate it. You have to just, and you want it to be able to ooze from your fibers that you are a master listener, that you value yourself and you value your communication partners so much that you're just in it. You're just all in it. And the other thing is, one of the things that I always think about when I think about great listeners, there's an old saying, we were in network marketing, and there was an old saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Now, how do you show people that you care? You listen.
People don't
listen.
They don't care that you know. Some people just want to be listened to.
That's right.
Relationships, adultery, sometimes it happens just because the man and or woman doesn't listen, and it's not always a sexual thing. Sometimes it happens and you lose your spouse or lose your loved one to somebody else's, get this, ear. You don't lose them to fine. You don't lose them to sex. You don't lose them to money or bank account. You can lose them simply because you would not listen. And they'll tell, I tried to tell you, but you would not listen. Now, of course, we know that sometimes the sending of the message, it produces a block in listening. So I'm telling you what I know by experience, that is going to take the honing in and practicing, and the P word, patience.
That's right.
Patience with yourself and patience with loved ones. And I'm not telling you this. I'm not telling you this because I'm there yet. I'm telling you this actually because I'm not where I want to be as yet. But the key is that I recognize where I'm not. That way I know where I am going.
And as master communicators, we have to believe in the communication process. We have to do good in the communication process. We have to encourage each other to truth in the communication process. And we have to encourage each other to be patient with the communication process. Brother Ghazi is out there and he's saying, this is great. Maybe that's why many of us are blind and deaf, because we refuse to develop our hearts and minds where true healing and vision takes place. Oh, wow.
And then Monica Orlando says she's sharing the video, listen, absorbing. That's key. Absorbing is the key. You know, a good sponge.
That's right.
You just put it down on top of the water. You can watch that water just get absorbed right into the sponge. That's kind of how we have to be.
You have to be a chamois.
Right. She said maybe that's why many of us are blind. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I jumped. She said, been sharing this video, listen, absorb it. Again, I really needed the message. No, thank you. She said, thank you both. Preach. No, thank you.
No, thank you
for taking the time.
And listen, you have questions, please ask us questions.
Right. Please. Because we as we're developing these talks, right? We want interaction. And I got to get coached by some of my mentors out there that's been doing this for a while. On how to get people to jump in. And I get it. I get that old adage, I don't want nobody in my business. Well, you better get somebody in your business or you're not going to have any business.
Or here's the other thing. Your business, while you see it as personally yours, what you do in your life impacts what someone else may do. It impacts what that person may do. And there's only 6 degrees of separation between any of us. So my business, while it's my business, it's your business too.
That's right. So we're all connected. It's a circle of life. No.
Like those poachers.
Yeah. So we're all connected. So take the time and hone in on the skill. Remember, it's the sender,
receiver.
The receiver decodes, provides information, and you give feedback to let the person know you're listening. But more than the feedback, change the behavior.
That's right.
If the behavior doesn't change, you understood nothing, not a damn thing. You just sit there and shook your head just to get the person to shut up. And we do a lot of that too. Okay. How many of you got? Okay. In your mind, you're thinking, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Like, are we there yet? Are you done yet? Okay. All right. Okay. And then that's it.
Ooh, that's good. So what happens when one or both parties refuse to accept uncomfortable truths in the communication process? Oh, Brother Gazi.
Great.
Okay,
question.
So
let me read the question again, okay? What happens when one or both parties refuse?
Damn it, I'm not listening to a word you saying.
Okay. I understand. Now watch this into the language. I understand. I get it. I get that it's painful, but I'm trying to help.
That doesn't sound helpful.
Okay. So maybe I could have said it differently.
What were you even saying?
I'm trying to get you to see. Now, listen, look at my tone. I'm trying. I'm attempting. I want to get you to see where I'm coming from. So now watch the reversal here. How could I have better communicated this to you?
I don't even know what your problem is.
Now see, what you have here is refusal. There's a block right here. As the brother just asked the question, my brother Gazi says, it's uncomfortable truth. And I think that's the key. It's not that it's not the truth. It just makes the person so uncomfortable that they are not yet ready. So do not press them to be where they are,
or to be
not,
where you want,
or where you want them to be. You want them to be exactly where your mindset is, what you're trying to get, the result that you're trying to get. But they're not ready to hear you yet. So it might be best in that particular situation to table it.
And when it's both parties, there is nothing that says that you can't invite someone in to serve as a mediator to help you to face, not necessarily accept, but at least get to the point where you're hearing an uncomfortable truth. See, in order to accept it, you have to first be able to hear it. And a lot of times we don't even want to hear it. Those walls go up. They're going up because I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that I'm failing at having dinner for my husband, because that's what, unfortunately, someone will hear.
Watch this. I'm glad you asked the question. We won't be but another 4 or 5 minutes as we're actually over time. When people hear, kind of dealing with insults here too, right? People don't hear that you're trying to correct their behavior,
or you're trying to help,
their behavior. What they hear is an insult.
Right.
They hear, especially when it's attached to what they're responsible for.
Right.
As a man, I'm responsible to maintain my family, provide wherewithal and financial and emotional security, right, for my family. So when you attack me as a man, where my ego is attached, I'm gonna block immediately, because I'm like, how dare you attack me by telling me how I'm supposed to be as a man.
So that goes back to, again, the conversation that you have to have with yourself when you are bringing something up. You have that conversation first with yourself. What is the best way? I know I'm getting ready to bring up an uncomfortable truth.
Right.
I know I'm getting ready to bring up something that may sting enough that walls are going to go up. So let me think, how would I want him to bring this to me? How would I want her to bring this to me? How would I be able to receive this information? A lot of times we have to go with, how can I assist you in this? How can I help you with this? A lot of times we're not even aware. I'm not aware of this uncomfortable truth. If the uncomfortable truth is, I jack up the laundry and I'm washing the laundry, all your underwear are pink, you're going to have to stop washing my laundry with red stuff. It's not the way to come to me and say, I don't, by the way, his underwear aren't pink. But I'm just saying, that's not the way to come to somebody. You want to help me fix this? You want to come with solutions, or with possible solutions, or suggestions on how we can improve this? Then you have to come in a helping way.
Exactly. So it's got to be, the intention has to be pure. The motive can't be to hurt. Remember those 5 principles. You can go back and watch the video. We don't want to take time.
We've gone over, and we appreciate all of you all who came and spent a little time with us, whatever the 1 or 2 minutes, the 5 minutes, the 30 minutes.
So, and if you're just joining, again, go back, watch the video. We hope it helped. It helped us.
Yeah, it
first,
did.
I promise.
Maybe will you listen a little bit better?
I will.
I'll do the same.
All right.
And I'll have those conversations before I tell you
what you say. So, ladies and gentlemen, listen, we're going to go ahead and give you a preview of next week's title.
Ladies
and men
and brothers. I'm going to be real, brothers. Yeah.
Now.
Not you, though.
Right. The question is, the next week's title is, am I fat?
Girl, you already know.
So we're going to get into, basically, it's being able to ask a question and accept the answer, and how to best ask an answer.
It's dealing with those uncomfortable truths, Next
week's title is,
am I fat?
Am I fat?
Not really am I fat, but am I fat? Can I cook? Do I do a good job maintaining the bills?
Right.
And your lights are off right now. No, you're not doing a good job.
So next week, am I fat? I'm not trying to be rude to anybody. It's really not about weight, but it's about being able to receive the truth
and communicate the truth.
Right. So thank you all. Remember, this is your brother and your sister.
We love y'all.
Love you all. And just all women, remember, there's never, I don't care where you are, what your status is in life, there's never an opportunity where you cannot become better.
Do it today. Today.
Peace.